Take your hands off her before I decide you're no longer welcome in my building." The sentence was spoken quietly, but every conversation inside the marble ballroom died at once. Elena Harper froze beside the overturned champagne tray, her cheeks burning as dozens of elegantly dressed guests stared at her. At 32, Elena had spent years learning how to survive rooms like this, rooms where wealthy women looked at her full figure before they looked at her face, where men assumed a plus-size secretary should be grateful just to stand near power, and where one careless accident could become an excuse for humiliation. Tonight, she had been carrying confidential folders across the engagement celebration of the most feared man in Chicago, when Victoria Langford, the woman everyone believed would soon become his wife, had stepped directly into Elena's path. Champagne splashed across Victoria's silver dress. Before Elena could apologize, Victoria's brother had grabbed her wrist hard enough to make her gasp. "Do you have any idea what that dress costs?" he snapped. Elena straightened despite the pain. "More than your manners, apparently." A few guests laughed before quickly remembering where they were. Then the Mafia boss spoke. Adrian Moretti stood at the top of the curved staircase, one hand resting in the pocket of his black tuxedo, his expression colder than the January wind outside. At 38, Adrian controlled a criminal empire disguised behind legitimate shipping companies, luxury real estate, and private security firms stretching from Chicago to New York. Politicians returned his calls. Rivals lowered their voices when they said his name. Employees knew that Adrian rarely repeated himself, and enemies knew they usually did not get the chance to make the same mistake twice. Yet Elena knew another version of him. For 4 years, she had been his executive secretary, the woman who remembered which contracts he refused to sign on Fridays because that was the day his father died, who kept black coffee waiting during overnight meetings, and who could tell from the way his jaw tightened whether he was angry or simply exhausted. She also knew he had never once commented on her body, never asked her to dress differently, never treated her kindness like weakness. That alone had made working for him more dangerous than she wanted to admit, because respect could become attachment before a woman realized what was happening. Adrian descended the staircase slowly. Victoria forced a smile. "Adrian, it was just an accident." His eyes did not move from the hand gripping Elena's wrist. "I wasn't talking to you." Victoria's brother released her immediately. Elena rubbed the red mark beneath her bracelet and wished the floor would open beneath her heels. She hated being defended in public. It reminded her too much of every time someone had mocked her in school, every blind date who had looked disappointed before she even sat down, every former boyfriend who had suggested she would be prettier if she lost 20 pounds. She had promised herself she would never again stand in a room waiting for someone else to decide whether she deserved dignity. Adrian stopped beside her, close enough that she caught the clean scent of cedar and expensive cologne. Without asking permission, he picked up one of the fallen folders, then another. The sight stunned the room more than his threat had. Men like Adrian Moretti did not kneel on marble floors for anyone. "I can handle it," Elena whispered. His gaze lifted to hers. "I know." That answer hit harder than sympathy would have. He handed her the folders and turned toward Victoria's brother. "Apologize." The man's face tightened. "For what?" Adrian's expression did not change. "You have 5 seconds to figure it out." The apology came in 2. Elena heard it, nodded once, and walked away before anyone could see how badly her hands were shaking. She did not stop until she reached Adrian's private office 3 floors above the ballroom. The city glittered beyond the windows, but Elena barely noticed. She opened the bottom drawer of her desk and removed the envelope she had hidden there that morning. Inside was a single sheet of paper carrying 6 words she had rewritten 3 times before finally printing them. "Please accept this as my resignation." Adrian's engagement had been announced 24 hours earlier. Elena had smiled when he told the staff. She had congratulated him. She had even ordered the flowers now decorating the ballroom. But she could not remain beside him while he married someone else, pretending that 4 years of quiet loyalty had never become something more dangerous inside her heart. She placed the envelope at the center of his desk, removed her security badge, and whispered, "This is better." Behind her, The office door clicked shut. Elena turned. Adrian stood there alone, his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, his eyes fixed on the envelope. "What's that?" he asked. She swallowed. "My resignation." For the first time in 4 years, the most controlled man in Chicago looked genuinely caught off guard. Then his gaze dropped to her badge, and something darker replaced the surprise. "You're leaving because I got engaged." Elena said nothing. Adrian stepped closer. "Answer me." She lifted her chin. "You're getting married, Mr. Moretti. You won't need me the way you used to." His jaw tightened. "That wasn't your decision to make." Elena reached for her purse. "Good night, Adrian." She made it 2 steps before his next words stopped her cold. "You're not leaving." She slowly turned back. Adrian was no longer looking at the resignation letter. He was looking at her like the engagement downstairs had just become the least important problem in his world. Adrian's words hung between them like a locked door. "You're not leaving." Elena stared at him, one hand still wrapped around the strap of her purse. Below them, 3 floors down, the engagement party continued beneath crystal chandeliers, hundreds of guests drinking champagne beneath a banner bearing Adrian Moretti and Victoria Langford's names. Up here, the silence felt far more dangerous. "You don't get to decide that," Elena said. Adrian's eyes narrowed, not with anger, but with the controlled focus that had made hardened men reconsider entire business deals. "I decide who works for me." "Exactly, works for you." She pointed toward the resignation letter. "And I'm done." He crossed the office in 3 measured steps and picked up the envelope. Elena expected him to open it. Instead, he tore it cleanly in half. Her mouth fell open. "Did you seriously just tear up my resignation?" "Yes. That's not how resignations work, Adrian." "Then write another one." "I will. I'll tear that one too." For one absurd second, Elena almost laughed. Then she remembered Victoria downstairs in a silver gown, smiling beside the man Elena had spent 4 years trying not to love. "Why does this matter so much to you?" she asked quietly. That stopped him. Adrian could negotiate with armed rivals without blinking. He could dismantle a hostile takeover before breakfast. But Elena had learned something most people never discovered about him. When a question reached somewhere personal, he went unnaturally still. "You run half my life," he finally said. "My calendar, my meetings, my contracts. You know which calls matter and which people are lying before they sit down." Elena folded her arms. "Hire someone else. I don't want someone else." The answer came too quickly. Their eyes met. Adrian looked away first. Elena hated how much that tiny victory hurt. "You're engaged," she said. "Congratulations, truly, but things change now." "Nothing has changed. Everything has changed." Her voice cracked slightly, and she immediately hated herself for it. Adrian noticed. Of course he noticed. His gaze dropped to the red mark around her wrist where Victoria's brother had grabbed her downstairs. The coldness in his face sharpened. "Did he hurt you? Don't change the subject." Adrian stepped closer. Elena instinctively stepped back until the edge of the desk touched behind her. He stopped immediately, leaving nearly 3 feet between them. That restraint was worse than if he had crowded her. Adrian could intimidate almost anyone, yet with Elena, he always seemed aware of exactly how much space she needed. "Let me see your wrist," he said. "I'm fine." "Elena." She reluctantly extended her hand. He did not grab it. Instead, he waited until she placed her wrist in his open palm. His fingers were warm, his touch unexpectedly careful as he examined the reddened skin. "He won't touch you again. I don't need you starting a war over a bruise." "It wouldn't be a war." Adrian raised his eyes. He'd have to be important enough for that. Despite herself, Elena smiled. Adrian saw it, and something in his expression softened for half a second. Then his phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. Whatever he read erased the softness immediately. "Stay here." "No," he looked at her. "That wasn't a suggestion." "And I'm no longer your secretary." Elena reached for the door. Adrian moved first, but instead of blocking her, he placed his hand against the wall beside the door and lowered his voice. "Someone accessed my private schedule 3 times this week." Elena's irritation disappeared. Only 4 people had authorization for Adrian's protected calendar. Adrian, Elena, his security chief Marco Bellini, and Victoria, whose access had been added after the engagement arrangement began. "What do you mean, accessed?" "Someone downloaded tomorrow's route to the Lakeshore warehouse." Elena frowned. You changed that meeting yesterday. Adrian's gaze sharpened. How do you know? Because I changed it for you. The warehouse meeting was moved to Thursday after Russo's people were spotted near the south entrance. Adrian slowly lowered his hand from the wall. I never told Marco about the change. Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. Neither did I. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Elena walked straight to her computer, forgetting her resignation entirely. She logged into the encrypted scheduling system and opened the access history. There, she pointed at the screen. Someone used my credentials at 2:14 this morning. Adrian moved beside her. Their shoulders almost touched. Were you here? I was asleep in my apartment. Can you prove it? Elena turned sharply. Are you accusing me? No. His answer was immediate. I'm proving you weren't the one who did it. That distinction landed somewhere deep. Elena began checking the security logs. A second entry appeared, then a third, all under her employee ID. Her stomach dropped. Someone cloned my credentials. Adrian pulled out his phone. Marco, lock down the building. Nobody leaves. Elena grabbed his wrist before he could finish the call. Wait. Adrian looked at her hand on him, then at her face. Elena enlarged one section of the digital record. This access wasn't remote. Whoever used my credentials was inside this building. Music still drifted faintly upward from the engagement party below. Hundreds of guests, politicians, businessmen, mafia associates, Victoria's family. Adrian's expression became unreadable. Can you trace the terminal? Elena typed quickly, following a system path she had helped design 2 years earlier. A location code appeared. She read it once, then again, hoping she had misunderstood. Adrian? Where? Elena turned the monitor toward him. The private bridal suite. Adrian's jaw hardened. That room had been reserved for Victoria alone. Before either of them could speak, the office phone rang. Elena answered automatically. No voice came through at first. Then a distorted whisper filled the line. Tell Moretti his secretary should have quit yesterday. The call disconnected. Elena slowly lowered the receiver. Adrian had heard every word. He stepped in front of her, positioning himself between Elena and the office door, as alarms suddenly began locking down the building below. Then his phone buzzed again. This time, the message contained a photograph taken less than 10 minutes earlier. It showed Elena entering the elevator alone after leaving the ballroom. Someone had drawn a red circle around her body. Beneath it were 5 words, "She knows too much now." The red circle around Elena's body looked less like a warning and more like a target. Adrian stared at the photograph for 2 seconds, then locked his phone and turned toward the office door. You're coming with me. Elena rose from the desk. Where? Somewhere no one in this building can reach you. Adrian, whoever did this used my credentials. If I disappear now, I look guilty. He faced her, the city lights cutting sharp shadows across his expression. I don't care how it looks. I do. She stepped closer, forcing herself not to look away. I spent 4 years earning the trust of everyone who matters in this company. I'm not hiding in some guarded room while somebody uses my name to betray you. Adrian's jaw tightened. This stopped being about your reputation when someone put a target on you. And if they wanted me dead, they could have done more than send a photograph. That made him pause. Elena pointed toward the screen. They want you frightened. They want you watching me instead of watching them. For a moment, neither moved. Then Adrian gave the smallest nod. It was not surrender. It was respect. Fine. You stay where I can see you. The elevator carried them down toward the ballroom, accompanied by 2 armed members of Adrian's security team. Elena could feel his attention tracking every floor indicator, every sound beyond the steel doors. When they opened, the party had transformed. Music had stopped. Security stood at every exit. Guests whispered beneath the chandeliers while Marco Bellini, Adrian's security chief, collected phones from anyone attempting to leave. Victoria Langford stood near the center of the room, still wearing her silver gown, fury replacing her polished smile. Adrian, what is happening? He walked directly toward her, Elena at his side. Victoria's eyes flickered toward Elena, and the irritation there was immediate. This is because of her, isn't it? Adrian stopped. Someone accessed a restricted schedule from your bridal suite. Victoria's face changed. Only slightly, but Elena saw it. That's impossible. Then you won't mind us checking. You think I'm spying on you? Victoria snapped. Her brother Nathan Langford stepped forward. "This is insulting. Our family came here to celebrate an alliance, not be treated like criminals because your secretary misplaced a password." Elena felt the room shift. There it was, the accusation. Adrian's voice turned dangerously quiet. "Use her name." Nathan frowned. "Excuse me?" "Her name is Elena Harper. If you're going to accuse her, you'll show enough respect to say it." Silence rolled across the ballroom. Elena's throat tightened, but she refused to lower her gaze. Nathan laughed once. "Fine. Elena Harper's credentials were used. Maybe she's not as loyal as you think." "I am," Elena said. Nathan looked at her as though noticing furniture had spoken. "No one asked you." Adrian moved before Elena could answer. One step, nothing more. Yet Nathan immediately stopped smiling. "You will not speak to her like that in my house." Victoria grabbed Adrian's arm. "This is ridiculous. You're risking everything over an employee." Adrian looked down at her hand until she removed it. "I'm protecting someone who has protected my business for 4 years." Elena heard the words, but the pain beneath them surprised her. Someone. Employee. Business. She reminded herself that was exactly what she had been trying to escape upstairs. Then Marco approached. "We checked the bridal suite." He held up a small black device sealed inside an evidence bag. "Signal duplicator, hidden behind the vanity." Victoria went pale. "I've never seen that before." Nathan's expression hardened. "Convenient." Marco continued, "There's more. It copied Miss Harper's security badge when she entered the suite yesterday afternoon." Elena blinked. "I was never in that room yesterday." Marco looked toward Adrian. "Security footage says otherwise." A large monitor near the bar flickered to life. Grainy hallway footage appeared. A woman with Elena's height, dark hair and navy office dress entered Victoria's suite at 4:38 p.m. Her face was partly hidden by the camera angle, but the resemblance was unmistakable. Whispers spread through the crowd. Elena stared at the screen. "That isn't me." Nathan smiled coldly. "Of course it isn't." Adrian did not look at the video. He looked at Elena. "Where were you at 4:38? In your conference room with the Zurich legal team." "I remember." "Then somebody dressed like me." Elena stepped toward the monitor. "Pause it." Marco obeyed. Elena studied the image. The woman's left hand was visible against the door. "Zoom in." The picture blurred, then sharpened. A diamond bracelet glittered around the stranger's wrist. Elena's breathing stopped. She had seen that bracelet earlier that evening. Victoria had worn it before changing jewelry for the party. Adrian noticed Elena's expression. "What?" Before she could answer, Victoria spoke. "That proves nothing. Half the women here own diamonds." Elena turned toward her. "Maybe, but not that one." She pointed at the distinctive clasp. "Your initials are engraved on it." Every face shifted toward Victoria's wrist. It was bare. Victoria looked down as though realizing it for the first time. "I lost it." Nathan stepped between them. "Enough." Elena's instinct screamed. She looked at the monitor again. The woman in the footage had Victoria's bracelet, Elena's clothes, Elena's hair, but she walked with a slight limp in her right leg. Elena knew someone who walked exactly that way. Before she could say the name, the ballroom lights went out. A woman screamed. Adrian's hand found Elena instantly, pulling her behind him as emergency lights flooded the room red. Then a single gunshot cracked from somewhere above the balcony. Guests dropped to the floor. Security drew weapons. Adrian turned, shielding Elena with his body, but Elena saw something he did not. Marco Bellini was not looking toward the balcony where the shot had come from. He was looking directly at Victoria, and Victoria was nodding. "Elena, down." Adrian's arm locked around her waist as a second shot struck the marble column behind them, sending white dust through the red emergency light. He pulled her behind the grand piano while guests crawled toward the walls and security rushed toward the balcony. Elena's pulse thundered, but her eyes stayed on Marco Bellini. Adrian's security chief had drawn his weapon, yet he still wasn't looking for the shooter. He was watching Victoria. "Adrian," Elena whispered. "Marco knows." Adrian turned slightly. "Knows what?" "The blackout. The shot. Look at him." Marco raised 2 fingers toward the west corridor. Half the security team immediately moved in that direction, leaving the ballroom's private service exit almost unguarded. Victoria began backing toward it. Adrian saw her now. His expression changed from protective urgency to something colder. "Stay behind me." "No." Elena grabbed his sleeve. If Marco's involved, your men may be following his orders." Adrian looked at her, and for once he didn't argue. He touched the hidden microphone beneath his collar. "Moretti team, ignore Bellini. Lock west and south exits. Nobody moves without my authorization." Across the ballroom, Marco froze. That single hesitation confirmed everything. "Adrian," Marco called, forcing calm into his voice. "Shooters upstairs. Let me handle this." Adrian stood, keeping his body between Elena and the open room. "Drop the weapon." The ballroom went silent, except for the alarm. Marco stared at him. "You're making a mistake. Then make it easy for me to apologize later." Two guards who had worked directly for Adrian's family for more than a decade moved toward Marco. Victoria suddenly ran for the service exit. Elena reacted before anyone else. "She's leaving." Adrian turned, but Marco shoved one of the guards aside and hit the emergency release beside the doors. Victoria disappeared into the corridor. Marco followed. Adrian started after them, then stopped when he saw Elena moving too. "Absolutely not. I know where that corridor goes." "So do I." "No, you know where it used to go." Adrian stared at her. Elena pointed toward the far wall. "Renovations last month. The old service staircase is sealed. Victoria has one route left, the bridal suite." Adrian's eyes sharpened. "How do you know?" "Because I approved the contractor invoices." For the first time that night, something almost like pride flickered through his expression. "Stay beside me." They moved through the secured corridor with 4 loyal guards. Adrian kept Elena close but never dragged her, adjusting his pace whenever she slowed in her heels. At the bridal suite, the door stood open. Victoria was inside, ripping papers from a small leather case. Marco stood beside her. Adrian said. Victoria turned. "No, Adrian, it's finally beginning." Marco raised his weapon, but 3 red laser sights immediately settled across his jacket from Adrian's guards. His hand slowly lowered. Elena noticed something beside Victoria's vanity, a navy dress identical to the one she had worn yesterday. Beside it sat a dark wig. "You framed me," Elena said. Victoria smiled without warmth. "You made it easy. Same size badge, predictable schedule. Everyone trusts the loyal secretary." Elena's gaze dropped to the floor. A pair of women's shoes rested beneath the chair, one sole slightly thicker than the other. The woman in the footage had a limp. Victoria glanced toward the bathroom. Elena understood. "She wasn't you." A woman stepped from the shadows. Celeste Langford, Victoria's older cousin and personal assistant, leaned heavily on her right leg. Elena had seen her around the office dozens of times, but had never considered her important enough to remember. That had been the point. Celeste removed the diamond bracelet from her wrist and placed it on the vanity. "People only notice who they're taught to notice," she said. The words cut deeper than Elena expected. For years she had known exactly what it felt like to be overlooked. Victoria had simply weaponized invisibility. Adrian's voice turned hard. "Why?" Victoria laughed. "Because your engagement gave my family access to everything we needed. Your schedules, your properties, your allies. Once you married me, the Langfords wouldn't need permission to enter your empire." Elena looked at Adrian. "Once you married her?" Something in his face made Victoria's smile falter. Adrian reached inside his jacket and removed a folded document. There was never going to be a wedding. Victoria went still. Elena did too. Adrian unfolded the pages. "The engagement agreement expired at midnight tonight, unless both families approved the merger terms. I had already rejected them this afternoon." Elena stared at him. "You rejected the engagement?" "The business alliance," he corrected quietly. "The engagement was part of it." Her chest tightened. "And you weren't going to tell me?" His eyes met hers. "I was going to tell you after the party." Victoria's expression twisted. "You threw away $1 billion alliance for your secretary?" Adrian didn't even look at her. "No, I threw it away because your family is dishonest." Then his gaze returned to Elena. "What I'm willing to risk for my secretary is a different conversation." Elena forgot how to breathe. Marco suddenly lunged toward the vanity. Elena saw his hand reaching for a phone hidden beneath the papers. "Adrian!" She shoved the leather case off the table. The phone hit the floor before Marco could reach it, and one of Adrian's guards restrained him. The screen lit up as it fell. A countdown was running. 7 minutes, 43 seconds. Adrian picked up the phone. "What happens when this reaches 0? Marco smiled for the first time. Every file copied under Elena Harper's credentials gets sent to the Moretti Family Council. Elena's blood went cold. Victoria stepped closer, triumph returning to her face. Bank transfers, route leaks, messages to your enemies, 4 years of fabricated evidence, all carrying her digital signature. Adrian looked at Elena. If those files reached his family council, she would not simply lose her job. Everyone in his world would believe she had betrayed him. "You can still save your empire," Victoria whispered. "Hand Elena over as the traitor, restore our engagement, and I stop the upload." Adrian stared at the countdown, then at the woman who had stood beside him for 4 years. Elena lifted her chin even though her eyes burned. "Do what you have to do." Adrian stepped toward her, removed his tuxedo jacket and placed it gently around her shoulders. "I am." Then he turned to Victoria. "Cancel every agreement with the Langfords." Victoria's face drained of colour. Adrian took Elena's hand in front of everyone. "If my empire requires me to sacrifice an innocent woman to keep it, then I don't deserve the empire." The countdown reached 6 minutes. Elena squeezed his hand and looked at the phone again. Then she noticed something in the transmission code that made her heart stop. "Adrian," she whispered, "they didn't build this system." He looked at her. Elena pointed at a sequence she recognized instantly. "I did." And suddenly the woman everyone had tried to frame was the only person who could stop the files from destroying him. Elena pulled Adrian's jacket tighter around her shoulders and dropped to her knees beside the fallen phone. 5 minutes and 48 seconds remained on the countdown. Around them, Adrian's guards restrained Marco and Celeste while Victoria stood near the vanity, her confidence cracking for the first time. "I designed the original transmission protocol 2 years ago," Elena said, tapping rapidly through the encrypted screen. "You built this?" Adrian asked. "You wanted a system that could transfer emergency records if the main servers were compromised." She glanced up at him. "You approved the budget without reading the technical notes." Adrian's mouth almost moved into a smile. "That sounds like me." "This is not the moment to be charming." "I wasn't trying to be. That's worse." 4 minutes, 59 seconds. Elena found the access panel, but a red warning appeared. "External authorization required." Her stomach tightened. They modified it. Victoria folded her arms. "Of course we did. Did you really think Marco spent 4 years smiling at you because he enjoyed your coffee?" Adrian's gaze snapped toward Marco. 4 years? Marco said nothing. Elena slowly looked at him. 4 years. The same length of time she had worked for Adrian. She remembered security updates Marco had personally insisted she install, password resets he had supervised, harmless-looking access forms he had asked her to sign. "You've been building a trail under my name from the beginning," she whispered. Marco finally smiled. "People see what they expect to see. Adrian Moretti's loyal secretary. Quiet, dependable, invisible." Elena stood. The word hit an old wound, but it no longer had the power it once did. "You made one mistake." Marco's smile faded. "What mistake?" Elena stepped closer to the phone. "You believed being overlooked meant I wasn't paying attention." She opened the system history. Every fake transfer carried her digital credentials, but whoever had copied her authorization had recreated the visible signature only. Elena had designed a secondary authentication marker buried beneath the transfer code, an 8-character pattern generated by the original user's typing rhythm. "My real files contain a behavioral key," she said. "Those don't." Adrian looked at her with something deeper than surprise. "Can you prove it?" "If I can get the files in front of the family council before this upload finishes." Victoria laughed. "They're already gathering downstairs. Marco scheduled an emergency vote. Once they see evidence that Elena sold your rotes to the Russo family, they'll demand you surrender her." Adrian's face hardened. "They can demand whatever they want." "Adrian." Elena stood and handed him the phone. "No, we don't hide from this." 3 minutes, 40 seconds. "If they're going to accuse me, I want to be in the room." He studied her carefully. "You don't have to prove anything to people who've already decided what you are." Elena met his eyes. "Maybe not. But I need to prove it to myself." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. He extended his hand. "Then we go together." They entered the ballroom less than a minute later. The chandeliers had come back on, casting harsh white light across a room now stripped of celebration. Moretti family council members stood around the long central table. Guests had been moved aside. Nathan Langford was there, speaking urgently to two older men. When he saw Adrian enter with Elena beside him, Adrian's tuxedo jacket still wrapped around her, his face tightened. "There she is," Nathan said. "The traitor." Elena stopped. Months ago, even hours ago, the word might have made her shrink. Tonight she lifted her chin. "Say my name." Nathan frowned. "What?" "If you're going to accuse me, say my name." Adrian looked at her, remembering his own words from earlier. Nathan scoffed. "Elena Harper betrayed the Moretti organization." "Good," Elena said. "Now prove it." The council erupted in murmurs. Adrian remained beside her, close enough that their arms touched, but he did not speak for her. Elena appreciated that more than protection. She connected the phone to the ballroom's main display. 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Files filled the screen. Transfers, messages, route coordinates, payments supposedly authorized by Elena. "Every one of these carries my visible credentials," she said, "but none carries my behavioral authentication key." Nathan shook his head. Convenient technical nonsense. Then compare them. Elena accessed a legitimate file she had sent Adrian 3 days earlier. 8 hidden characters appeared beneath the code. Then she opened one of the forged transfers. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Silence spread through the room. Elena looked toward Marco, now guarded near the entrance. "Whoever created these copied my identity, but not the part of the system they didn't know existed." One council member leaned forward. "Can the forgery be traced?" "Yes." Elena entered a recovery command. 1 minute, 30 seconds. A network map appeared, connecting every forged document to a private server. The location flashed across the screen. Langford Holdings, executive floor. Nathan's face went white. Victoria whispered, "Turn it off." Elena looked at her. "No." 58 seconds. Nathan suddenly grabbed the phone from the table and ran toward the side doors. Adrian moved, but Elena was closer. She stepped into Nathan's path and shoved the rolling service cart directly across the doorway. Nathan crashed into it, losing the phone. Adrian's guards seized him instantly. Adrian stared at Elena. "Remind me never to make you angry." "You already did. You got engaged." Even now, a few stunned laughs broke through the room. Adrian's eyes stayed on hers. 23 seconds. Elena recovered the phone, entered the final authentication command, and pressed stop transmission. The countdown froze at 3 seconds. Then the screen changed. Upload cancelled. Every forged file was marked invalid. The council erupted, but Adrian heard none of it. He walked straight to Elena. "You just saved my entire organization." Elena shook her head. "I saved my name." "You did both." Behind them, Victoria suddenly laughed. It was quiet, almost broken. "You think this changes anything? Tell her, Adrian." Elena turned. Adrian's expression darkened. Victoria smiled directly at her. "Ask him why he hired you 4 years ago." The room went silent again. Elena looked at Adrian. For the first time that night, he seemed unwilling to meet her eyes. "Adrian?" Victoria's smile widened. "She still doesn't know, does she? She thinks you noticed her because she was a good secretary." Elena felt the victory drain from her chest. "Know what?" Adrian finally looked at her, and the regret in his face frightened her more than the gunshots had. Victoria delivered the final blow softly. "He knew exactly who you were before you ever walked into that interview. 4 years earlier, Adrian Moretti had known Elena Harper's name before she ever sat across from him in an interview room, and now, with the entire ballroom waiting, Elena finally understood that whatever came next could either explain everything between them or destroy it. "Tell me," she said. Adrian glanced toward the council members, the restrained Langfords, and the dozens of guests still watching. Then he looked only at Elena. "Not here." Elena shook her head. "No, they accused me in front of everyone. Victoria revealed this in front of everyone. So tell me the truth in front of everyone." Adrian held her gaze for a long moment, then reached into his inside pocket and removed an old, worn photograph. He placed it on the table. Elena stared at the image. It showed a rain-soaked street, a damaged black sedan, and a younger Adrian sitting against the curb with blood running from his temple. Beside him knelt a curvy woman in a grocery store uniform, pressing her jacket against his wound while speaking to an emergency dispatcher. Elena's breath caught. "That was you," Adrian said quietly. She remembered the night instantly. She had been 28, working late shifts after her former fiancé walked out and left her struggling with bills. She had found a wrecked car near an underpass during a thunderstorm. The injured stranger had refused an ambulance at first, insisting someone was following him. Elena had stayed anyway, called for help, and stood between him and the road until a black SUV arrived. She had never learned his name. "You were that man?" she whispered. Adrian nodded. "I was coming from a meeting where someone inside my organization had betrayed me. I trusted no one. Then a stranger who had every reason to keep driving stopped in the rain and helped me without asking who I was or what I could give her." Elena looked at the photograph again. "How did you find me?" "The police report had your name. I remembered it." Victoria laughed bitterly from across the room. "How romantic. He investigated you." Adrian ignored her. "2 months later, your resume reached one of my companies. I recognized your name. I told Human Resources to give you an interview." Elena's eyes hardened. "So I was hired because you owed me?" "No." Adrian stepped closer, but stopped before entering her space. "I gave you an interview because I owed you. You got the job because you corrected a $12 million shipping error during that interview, while 3 executives were arguing over whose fault it was." Several council members exchanged amused looks. Elena remembered that too. "You never told me." "Because I wanted anything you earned after that day to belong to you." His voice lowered. "Not to me. Not to gratitude. You." The anger inside her loosened, but another question remained. "And the engagement?" Adrian turned toward the room. "There is no engagement." He removed the ceremonial ring Victoria had given him for the alliance and placed it beside the forged evidence. "As of tonight, every Moretti-Langford agreement is terminated." Victoria's face tightened. "You'll regret choosing her." Adrian finally looked at her. "I'm not choosing Elena because you betrayed me. I'm choosing to remove you because you did. What happens between Elena and me is hers to decide." Elena looked at him sharply. That was the moment that mattered. He could command a ballroom, end alliances, move armed men with a sentence, yet he refused to command her heart. Marco, Nathan, Victoria, and Celeste were escorted out to face the consequences of the evidence uncovered that night, while Adrian ordered every forged record permanently corrected and Elena's name formally cleared before the entire council. Then he did something no one expected. He turned to the room and said, "Elena Harper saved this organization tonight. Anyone who speaks her name with anything less than respect will answer to me." Hours later, dawn began spilling pale gold across Chicago when Elena found Adrian alone on the terrace outside his office. The party decorations below were being removed. Her resignation badge still rested on his desk. "You tore up my letter," she said. Adrian looked almost guilty. "That was inappropriate." Elena smiled faintly. "Extremely. You're still free to leave." And if Ace remained controlled, but his answer did not, "I'll let you." He paused. "And I'll hate every second of it." Elena's eyes burned. "You could hire another secretary." "I could." He stepped closer. "But I wasn't afraid of losing my secretary tonight." She looked up at him. "Then what were you afraid of losing?" Adrian's guarded expression finally broke. "You." No grand speech followed. No demand. He simply reached for her hand and waited. Elena looked at his open palm, then placed hers inside it. "I'm still resigning," she said. Adrian blinked. She smiled. "I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering whether you love your secretary or Elena Harper." Understanding softened his face. "Then resign." "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow I ask Elena Harper to dinner." "Just dinner?" "I'm learning not to give orders." She laughed, and for the first time in years, the sound carried no apology. 3 months later, Elena returned to Moretti headquarters not as Adrian's employee but as the woman walking beside him. She had started her own corporate security consulting firm, using the same intelligence everyone once overlooked, and Adrian became her first client. He never asked her to become smaller, quieter, easier, or different. He loved the woman who had stopped in the rain for a stranger, who had defended her own name before a room full of powerful men, and who had saved him twice without ever needing him to save her dignity. And Elena finally understood something she should have known long before Adrian Moretti entered her life. She had never been too much to love. She had simply spent too many years around people who offered too little. So what would you have done if you were Elena? Walk away after discovering the truth, or give Adrian one chance to prove that his feelings were real? If you believe the right person should make you feel seen, respected, and chosen exactly as you are, subscribe to the channel for more stories where even the most guarded hearts can find their way home.